Hello.
Hi, Fawn.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming. Are you working from home?
No, it's in the office. Can you see me?
Yes, lovely. Thank you so much. And you in the Boston area, right? In
Yeah,
Cambridge.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Very nice. And I see the weather is quite lovely now, isn't it?
Really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to come to office now a few times a week.
Okay, understand. It's a bit more relaxed to come, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for your time and appreciate that very much. So for today, would you mind if I share screen with you so that you can see what we're gonna do the interview, what it's about for our interview today? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I can share the screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about my PhD thesis that I conducting the research in performance management in tech company, and after a series of case study and interview and data collection for the questionnaire and things, so I come up with the 9 conceptual model, if you like, what it needs for the performance management in tech company. With I see your background, then we don't have time to talk to every topic today. So I will just pick the topic that under your expertise, if you like. I think you have such a high expertise and with your background, PhD from Harvard, and also many courses in management. So I will start with the talent management in this one. You can see here. The reason
Yeah.
I start with talent management because regardless of department you are in, at the moment you run your own startup, you run your own company. Of course, that if you start from like small team, I'm not sure the size of the team where you are today, but any startup you start with something small. So a talent management is one of the crucial part of the tech company, if you like. So I will start with the talent management. May I ask you to sort of name maybe a 3 career motivation of the team as you manage? Do you think what are the best, the top 3 career motivation, and what do they need the most in terms of the employee, staff, or team member of your startup?
I would say, hang on. I think when I speak to, candidates to recruit, right?
Yeah,
People. And usually, it's more of desire that they have to learn entire business.
yes,
Their interest in learning entire business, not just segmented, siloed area in a big corporate.
yeah,
That's one. They can have exposure to sort of a setting up to growing company to different departments, so cross-functional learning,
yeah,
right?
learning, yes,
Yeah, that's one. That's a huge because these people that who are interested in startup is usually they are kind of tired of a corporate world and they are not very important at the end. They are kind of part of a big machine, right?
yeah, understand,
They want to be in the, important decision making process. They want to be at least have some exposure to those process, and then their voice is heard, and then they want to contribute, right? They
yeah,
want to be a part of decision making as well, to a certain extent, depending on the obviously their positions, right?
yes,
That's that number one. Number two is learning aspect. Number two is actually equity piece,
yes,
ownership piece, because corporate really you work for a paycheck,
yes,
but the startup is you potentially can get a lot of financial reward,
yeah,
right? Obviously, there's a sense of accomplishment if you grow the company and then you can sort of reach the next stage of acquisition or IPO or whatnot. Anyways, it's a huge accomplishment, personal level, but career level, professional level. But big bonus is the financial reward because you joined the company early on. You have a more ownership equity that you are given as early employees.
Yeah.
That's that. And then the third piece is the lack of bureaucracy and hierarchy. So, decision can be made pretty quickly. It's more casual environment. And then less bureaucracy. They have to go through like a process driven and then the approval
Yeah.
driven.
It's like
So three things mainly that motivations that I use for the employees, and it's
Yeah.
been fine.
Yes, I think you are pretty accurate that I have done a survey to over nearly 50 professional in engineer in tech, in particular engineering and tech, both undergrad and the graduate and the staff that are currently work in tech company. So nearly 50 of the candidates, the participant in this survey, and the top 10 motivation factor that they have, as you mentioned, the professional development opportunity. So they want to learn, they want to see how they can grow their career, as you mentioned, right, for the first aspect. And then, of course, the financial enumeration, as you mentioned, the equity, the package of the finance in short and long term, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think you mentioned about the culture of how the company run bureaucracy and things like that, and I would say that that is related to the workplace relationship with superior and subordinate, like how the culture of the company is like. Is that what you mean, right? Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So
Yeah.
that's very nice to hear from the startup in Cambridge. And another aspect that I like to see, the key performance indicator in tech, they are quite unique comparing to other section. That the aspect in tech, I have here in front of you for talent management, and I have five of the performance indicator. And I'd like to get your view of what are the top five key performance indicator that you use to monitor for the talent management. Namely, we have here employee retention and employee satisfaction, or cost to hire them, or professional training spend, or revenue per employee. So if I ask you to ranking like 1 to 5, and do you have any in mind, like what are the first or the most important of the KPI for the talent management?
Yeah, I guess the revenue per employee
Yeah.
is definitely most sort of
Mm-hmm.
quantitative, right?
Yeah.
And then more objective way to see it.
Yes.
There's no dispute, right?
Yeah.
Number one. And then number two is, I would say, the retention rates, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously high turnover is not desirable,
No.
and that costs the organization a lot in terms of
Yes.
time and effort. And then the number three is, hold on. I mean, employee satisfaction is kind of subjective. Sometimes it's a great environment, but you see what I mean? They want
Understand. Yeah.
that.
It depends on
Uh,
personal, and everyone are different in a way, right?
yeah. I think that those three are like kind of, hold on, the professional training spend, time and money spent on the training activities. Well, not necessarily in a startup world we spend money, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's more the time of existing employees
Yes.
supporting the new employee to get on board rather
Yes.
quickly. So, I mean, cost to hire, again, it's kind of norm, right?
Yeah.
Unless you need someone. So I would say I would rank these other three for just three. Like they are just not really a good
Yeah.
indicator in my
So
mind. I mean, in my case.
the third one, the three, what is it? The satisfaction, or cost too high, or the satisfaction, right?
No, no,
Or
all three. I'm gonna put it in a one
oh,
bucket. That's
sorry.
trying to say.
It has to be like it one. It's like top five. It 1 to 5. It has to be a unique number. Sorry, I didn't mention.
I see,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. It's like ranking.
I'll put still like employee satisfaction 3,
Yeah.
and then cost higher will be 5,
Yeah.
and the profession training 4. Yeah.
Understand. I think your point of a really the aspect of startup is, even though we know the training and career progression of the employee are so important, but at the startup, the finance is quite limited, right? We cannot fulfill everybody, our staff, what they need, isn't it? So if you
Yeah.
can see in here that you see the career motivation that I have conduct for survey for professional and engineer in tech. And in the right hand side here is the overall, I think there's no right and wrong. I have to mention that for now, that it's just subjective depending on your environment, your startup, your type of company. So we can see that the everyone are different depending on what aspect they are on. But one thing in common, as you already mentioned, that it is cost the company not able to retain employees, isn't it? Because the investment is not just the paycheck, it's also the time they develop your in particular in your case R&D, isn't it? So do you think that is it quite pretty accurate that we look at the talent management perspective, we're talking about the professional development and the satisfaction of the staff, they will be happy to get the professional training, and the overall of different aspect of employee subjectively require different things.
I think that there's a definitely universal I would say parameters that apply to everyone, like a
Yes.
professional
Yeah.
development, for example. And then I think that there's soft things, not hard things, that should be a little customized,
Yeah.
right? Those are kind of subtle things. Some people want more, like, for example, no set vacation days, kind of, free system. Some people want the, a little more, like, salary raise,
Yeah.
or people want the snacks in the
Yeah.
office. So it's different.
Precisely.
Um,
So
but
yeah.
go ahead. I think that in reality, it's hard to kind of accommodate everyone because
Yeah.
we are so busy kind of hitting the goals and hitting the milestones and deliver against the goals, not
Yeah.
necessarily try to take care of everybody's needs, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, I think that the one advantage that we have is because we are in like very plain field, no hierarchy,
Yeah.
everybody is accessible. There's more open communication channels.
Precisely.
So you can kind of listen to new hires kind of, either not complaint, but, wish list and on whatnot. And then your CEO is like, working right next to you. So I think that it's definitely they can kind of share their thoughts more
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
When I work in a bigger company, it's hard to talk to CEO saying, well,
Yes.
I don't like it, this,
Yeah.
right? So I
Precisely.
think there's certain things can be amended, and the open sort of communication channels that we
Yes.
have is,
Open communication. I'm very agree with that.
yeah.
Yeah. And then that's very insightful information. Thank you so much. And next topic, I'd like to talk about the R&D project. And the reason for that is in your experience, especially the startup that you just found, and we can see that there are, in terms of startup, I think you probably agree that most startups start with an idea, right? And then an idea has to come to reality, and that require R&D, require implementation to make things happen and things like that, right? And it seems to be that you have extensive experience on that regarding your PhD in Harvard on medical, isn't it? Your medical PhD student at Harvard.
No, it was my postdocs and research
Oh,
fellow. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But your job is pretty much involved on a lot of R&D research and development, isn't it?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
And if you don't mind, I asked a similar question that I'm talking to R&D here. That what are the top five key performance indicator here that you're thinking that is related to the section you are in terms of tech company? So we have here the R&D schedule, job get done on time when it comes to R&D, or cost is within the budget, or the quality of product and reliability, or return investment in terms of innovation created, or effectiveness in identification and prioritization of risk factor. So what
Mm.
sort of you thinking the most important for top five ranking here? If you don't mind, you let me know, please.
Oh, no, not at all. I think these are all good KPIs,
Yeah.
right, that you listed out. Again, I think that, investors and board standpoint, they are always measure your performance against objective quantitative
Yes.
outcomes. In that case, again, return on investment
Yeah.
is the best one,
Mm-hmm.
because even if your product quality is not really up to your standard
Mm-hmm.
or our standard, if consumer or, there's a revenue,
Yeah.
then it's fine,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Of
And
course.
also quality-wise too, again, we try to drive and excel all those, but really I think that those are the parameters to get to the revenue point,
Yes.
right? So the revenue is number one.
Yeah.
Number two is time is essence.
Yes.
So number
So.
two is time,
Mm-hmm.
the deliver on time. Because a startup, I think the advantage we have against the big companies with the big budget is the speed,
Yes.
speed market and speed. So if we don't meet that, it's very,
Yes.
we are
I
in
totally
trouble.
understand. Yeah. We
Yeah,
behind. You rather make it or just miss it.
yeah. And then I would say uh, the budget is number three because we have a limited budget. So definitely there's some wiggle room, but we cannot really go over the budget
Yeah.
if there's an issue. Number four, I will say the effectiveness in
Yeah.
identification and prioritization. And then product quality. Of course, these are all important, but I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, I understand. It's just different aspect, and at the one thing that you are on, you are at the startup stage. So the investment from investor, you really need to serve the investor, isn't it? And you know exactly what they want. They want the return of investment. So that is
Mhm.
very important. Thank you very much for that. And if you look at the overview of over 50 director and manager and senior engineer that I have gathered information of what they think in the top right here, what the top five KPI um, uh, for their perspective, for the experience that they have. And you can look at there as well. You mentioned about if you look at the R&D project or R&D development overview picture, you will see here. I'd like to get your view. Is this quite, aligned with the practicality that you are in? For example, R&D is very difficult. It's so many unforeseen issue is one thing, and they need to identify the risk and plan for the mitigation. The project is very heavily under pressure on quality and cost and time, and you need to balance all of that to get the job done, especially early stage. And you need to recognize the market opportunity and find the issue and solution that you can provide as per your startup. And you need money, of course, to get to the point where you can just get your startup started. And do you think that this kind of a picture that I'm gathering from several practitioners in tech, is it aligned with the practicality that you run for your startup as well?
Well, I think one thing that I want to point out
Yeah,
though, right? In at least the Boston area, the biotech or tech companies,
yeah.
often they don't create any revenue.
Okay, so no revenue.
They just do the R&D projects.
Yeah.
So when you think about this biotech companies or tech companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little bit commercial oriented science lab to me,
Yeah,
because I'm making actually product and trying to sell to customers or consumers and then actually make money,
yeah,
right? And they try to make money, but we're not going to reach break even for a while because we
yeah,
have to do so much. And then once I bring some revenues, increase the revenue, and then I'm going to reach the point of exit, right?
Yes.
However, I actually share the office. This is a shared office with the 3 biotech companies.
Oh,
So they're
lovely. Yeah.
medicine-related biotech. They actually never make any products.
Never make a product.
No. They are actually developing. So they are more the bigger R&D company, right?
Right.
So they kind of make prototypes, or they just develop technology, data set,
Yes.
like clinical trials, all those. And then usually before they reach any commercialization, they get acquired. Do you understand, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very common. So if you ask same questions, those CEOs or those people,
Yeah.
revenue is almost like irrelevant.
Yeah.
They
That's
have to
very good
really,
insight. Yeah.
yeah. And then I know one CEO that he sold 3 companies in the past, right?
Wow.
Very successful. But all they did, they never created any revenue. They just develop R&D project is close to, developing a lot of, building a lot of data set,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if big company like Pfizer, whatever, see the data package, they can already guess, okay, I'm going to engineer to use, this technology to commercialize it,
Yes.
right? And then they just buy it in an early stage. So I really see them as just a lab with a bunch of grad students, kind of. Of course, they're
Right.
not grad students. They are like, employees of engineers and scientists, but in a very commercial focused, activities.
Yeah, understand. So in that case, the cost and the financial aspect isn't much on the equation. For them is to make it to the point where the product is sufficient for someone, the big company, to acquire them, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the cost and quality is important. That's why I think that in my sense, product quality reliability is very important
Yeah.
for product tech. But the return on investment or the revenue creation, those things are not really, I feel.
Yeah, understand. Because of the nature of biotech, isn't it? That that and do as well the aspect of the product, it have to be, of course, as you mentioned, a great quality and competitive price. That you mentioned, the cost and quality have need to be aligned with the world perception of how you can be stand out on that. And based on your experience, and do you see as well that every product or every development you have done, there are so many unforeseen issues, and how you deal with that, and do you need some kind of SWOT analysis or the risk mitigation plan? Is that main part of equation as the daily operation that you are in as a CEO?
I mean, to certainly, we don't do any formal sort of a SWOT on a
Yeah,
daily basis, to be honest.
yeah,
Startup, as you know, it's a
I totally understand. Yeah,
chaotic, and so sometimes it's kind of lack of structure. I mean, it's not like I have a day-to-day set schedule. Like if some are, something happened in the manufacturing, something happened in the product stability, or next day there's marketing, that there's something happened there. So I think that without having like formal process, we constantly deal with the SWOT, like, right,
yeah,
analysis on a daily basis, and then we're trying to kind of figure out how to manage it. But I don't think it's done it in a very, to be honest, organized and structured way.
yeah.
I think that is the one thing that we one risk that startup always kind of live with,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, totally understand. So it pretty much startup or the company in tech, it pretty much R&D focus, isn't it? That what you wake up overnight, and what make you wake up overnight is R&D gonna work or not working, right?
Yeah. It's and then at the same time you're constantly dealing with the fundraising.
Yeah,
If no matter how much money in the bank, you are constantly deal with this. So yeah, I guess it's very chaotic. I think
it is.
it's
Yeah,
no
especially in
right.
Cambridge. Yeah, very competitive.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that's very very nice. That I get insightful information regarding R&D. So the next aspect or perspective, I'm gonna go to what you mentioned earlier, finance and funding and fundraising, and it depends on like what type of company. In terms of tech, I assume that you need to do a few round of fundraising, and that is funding or finance, isn't it? So in the aspect of the finance and fundraising or funding, we have the profits and cash flow and working capital and revenue growth rate or return on investment. And what do you think is the top five ranking in terms of the KPI on the funding and finance?
Well, this changes depending on which stage you are.
Yeah.
So, so this is really, I think, even startup, there's a different life cycle.
Yes.
It, do you have prototype or you don't have prototype? Do you have any commercial product? You don't have any commercial product. Are you in a seed funding stage? Are you in a Series A? So it's a little difficult to say.
Yeah.
So question to you is what life stage that you are asking, or you're just asking me about my company?
Yeah, it's just in overall of your perspective in general, really, because of course the company have to come from start until wherever you sell your company for millions of dollars and things like that. But just in general, what you're thinking of the cycle of the finance and funding, what do you monitor or use the KPI the most? What are the most top five important ranking?
Cash flow, number
Yeah,
one, and then the revenue growth rate,
yeah,
because working capital is kind of it's a simple thing,
yeah,
relatively simple than others. So
yes.
ROI, right?
Yeah,
Three, yeah, and then the working capital four,
yeah,
and then profit five.
yeah,
Because profit usually you don't get much profit at the
yeah.
beginning.
So I totally see your point of because you're startup and your expertise in tech is biotech, isn't it? It's medication is biotech, and your aim is how hoping Pfizer gonna buy your company, right?
Mhm.
That kind of thing.
Yeah,
So it
I mean, our recruiters won't be Pfizer, but yeah,
like that
I
kind of
am
aspect. Mm.
all consumer product companies
Yeah.
like J&J and P&G, those. Yeah.
Yeah. So and you can see like it depends on what aspect of your, isn't it? Like for the average over 50 senior director manager and senior engineer, you see the aspect are different. I think you are very right
Mhm.
saying depending on what stage you are and depending on what type of the company you are as well. If you are a corporation, I think it likely to be profit, but if you are startup in particular of biotech, right, as you mentioned, the profit it would be the least consideration, if you like, and some other would be
Yeah,
more important.
like time your KPI pie charts that I've been seeing,
Yeah.
right? It's not really like a truly noticeable rank. It's all kind of equal portions in a way
Oh
because
yeah.
it's, you see what I mean? It's
Yeah, yeah.
like equally important almost. It's hard to rank them.
Yeah, I
Kind
mean, for the
of.
finance, you are very right that because we're using the weight average, for example, who's choose number one, you get a higher score, and if you choose second ranking, you get a little lower score. And at the very end, you are very right that the discrimination between each KPI is very, very similar.
Yeah, it's
In fact, the last three they are identical, right?
it's a equal slices kind of.
Exactly. I think you spot on. Yeah. Um, but if you look at like what's the top priority of KPI for finance, you will see quite a big percentage of, I mean, how many people should profit at the top of KPI and things like that. But when it comes to weight average, I think you're very, very right that it's very, very similar. So, and in terms of the finance and in particular of the tech company, do you agree that the tech startup or the tech company they need very rich resource and funding for development to stay competitive, and they need develop product concept by addressing opportunity arising from market the gap and advanced technology, and they need to create the high level product realization plan with the funding requirement and schedule. And do you think this is the perception of tech company?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You described it well. Yeah.
Yeah, and then once you have a perception, then you will see a process, which I'm sure you have been very much. May I ask that how many round of investment funding you have been raised so far for your startup over a course of a year or two?
No, it's I'm in the seed funding raise.
Yeah.
So I plan to do Series A next year, end of next
Wow.
year. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm planning. Okay.
Incredible. So you already got the seed funding from the investor in Cambridge, right?
Yeah, yeah, in Boston area or the New York, like East Coast.
Wow, and very good. And you can see that for the seed funding, do you see the process that you're talking about? In fact, this is not. If you don't mind, I like to just go for this one because of I think your perspective would have been very very helpful for the in terms of the what you mean the finance funding in terms of the here the grant funding or
Mm.
the investment in here pretty much do you do like grant funding as well in your startup
No, no, we don't
right I
because
see
yeah, for us, just the angel investors,
right
and then individual investors in the sort of a network, and
yeah
then Series A, we're gonna go to BCs. We don't bring BC at this stage.
yes, just the angel and investor that you can find for the seed funding,
Yeah.
isn't it? And is the process of seed funding, is it quite reflect the process in here? For example, you have to just write up your business plan and pitch deck and create a pitch deck and then reach out a multiple angel VC and rewrite the plan and negotiate the term and then get that funding to develop the product or services that you are in. Is it quite generic and reflect the process here?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
You are right.
that's very
Hmm.
nice. And I assume that the one key critical part that you as a CEO and the founder is when the fund gonna be exhausted and when the project gonna be completed. How you manage this critical process to ensure that the funds are not exhausted before you actually go to the CDA funding?
Oh yeah, so it's a close monitoring. So we work with the sort of part-time CFO, right? His
Yeah,
sole job is watching the cash, right?
yeah,
And the dispersed seed funding will run out certain period. So before it runs out, so like quarter before it runs out, right?
yeah,
We to do Series A funding campaign,
yeah.
right? So the fund can come right timing before cash runs out. So I think that there's always risk, everybody. But usually what it happens is, the angel investors, right?
Yes.
They don't want to lose their funding.
No.
They're investors. So they also help create deal
Yeah.
to make sure there's a second round of funding is coming in. So usually BC joins that time, but also some big angel investor groups, they actually extend their funding as well.
Yeah.
Depending on, again, your performance, but they imagine they put down, 500,000, 1 million, like in the seed funding phase,
Yeah.
but then Series A, they're going to put down 2 million or something, at least that, company doesn't die if there's
Yeah.
any trouble raising funding.
If there's still an opportunity there, so you will see the picture here that you see that once the fund exhaust, you go direct to raise more fund, and that will be come to either the existing angels or new angel or the VC, whoever available and willing to invest on your startup. So I
Yeah,
think that makes sense, isn't it? That it appears that as long as you still building the future, there will be some people believe in your company and pour more money on the
yeah,
startup. That's very
yeah.
accurate. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I like to mention about the next perspective on risk management. I'm not sure how
Hmm.
this practically apply to your startup, because the startup, as you mentioned, is not very well structured. But I want to mention one thing. I'm sure that in Cambridge, in other side of the East Coast and the West Coast, you really see the Theranos and Enron, and you might not familiar with Wirecard because they are European company. Um,
Oh,
Theranos is, I think you
I
feel, yeah,
yes.
Theranos is a master of biotech that fall apart because
Yeah,
of the ethical. And
yeah,
Enron are pretty much the same. The company come to like hero to zero. So the stock price overnight come from extremely um, high until zero. If you can see the chart here, it's a real figure. And
mm,
Wirecard is very similar. It's about the fraud and unethical financial manipulation. So the company overnight gone out of business as well. So the 2 billion just missing from the statement. Um, so I mentioned the risk management. I like to point out of the ethics that it appears to be in several cases that you see practically from your peer. And how do you think of uh, ethical ethical perspective when it comes to the performance management? Do you think this is very important that once it happens, it could break or take the company? For example, like Theranos, once it happened, it just come from you know putting the founder in every grocery magazine to at the moment she nearly in jail really.
yeah. Well, to me, the ethical aspect is I take it for granted, but it's a must.
Yes,
I
yes,
whole team and then the people overseeing company board, everything.
yeah.
It's just I think fundamental qualities that you should have,
Hmm.
right? So uh, yeah, I think it absolutely. I think it's very important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand. And if you don't mind, may I run with you the same of the risk management, and we can make the KPI, the top five again in this green area here. We have how you manage the risk management. For example, would you consider the severity of the risk or the risk assessment and mitigation status, and speed and costs incurred due to risk and the cost of risk management. How do you see these top five KPI ranking? If you want to rank them?
Yeah, let me think about it. So obviously severity
Yeah.
of risk is number one. Like if
Yes.
it's a small risk,
Hmm.
we always love to take.
Yeah.
Not we have to take. So severity, and then the speed and effectiveness of solutions. Obviously,
Yeah.
how
Very
fast we can fix
important.
it,
Yeah.
how well we can fix it, and then the of cost incurred due to risk,
Yeah.
cost of risk management,
Yeah.
and risk assessment and mitigation status.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. So this is the reflect the startup that you manage, right? So it just
Yeah.
severity of the risk is highly important. And again, as you can see, the overall average score statistic that I gathered over the 50 participants, as you mentioned, the top three is nearly the same figure, right?
Yeah,
They are equally important. You have to understand severity of the risk, speed, and assessment. I think you point out very, very nicely. And in terms of the risk management, would you see this like process is quite accurate in terms of the risk management? For example, you start with creating review, update, your risk analysis, and you estimate the risk and probability and its impact, as you mentioned, how severe the risk is, and you plan,
yeah.
prioritize, mitigate the risk effectively, and then you continuously monitor and control the risk assessment, and finally that you evaluate what the risk incurred as the cost of management, and you can see which one are higher and how you can manage that risk. Is it quite accurate that you take this consideration in mind when you manage the risk assessment in your startup?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much accurate. Only thing that I will change is that in my case,
Yeah.
it's a evaluate the cost of risk first and then monitor control risk assessment
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when I think about the cycle, right?
Yes.
How we, yeah.
So you mean that you want to consider evaluate the cost, the risk at the first to consider
No,
like,
not first. So the SWOT analysis, right?
yeah,
And then estimate risk probabilities, impact, good, and then prioritize and mitigate, right?
yeah,
And then now evaluate cost of risk,
yeah.
and then continuously monitor and control risk
Right, yeah, I
assessment.
think you were right that the continuous monitor could be like a feedback a little bit at the end of the whole process,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, I totally agree. And I should apply that. Yeah, that's very well spot. In terms of the unexpected risk in terms of startup, I think you must have seen either in Silicon Valley or in Cambridge, Boston area. Um, they have so many companies go from million to billion, and there are several more that go out of the business. So, what is unexpected risk that could take or break the company? I'm come up with here from my case study and
Oh,
the research that I have been over a number of years and come up with an ethical investment term is one of which that I've seen, and the hidden and manipulate financial reports, as you can see in reality in a big corporation, a big startup, and or you can see for some startup pursue the non-existing product market fit. As you can see that you spend million at the end, you just realize that nobody wants it. And then a late decision to drop the untenable R&D, as you will see that you can pour money as much as you like, but if it's
mm,
unachievable, like Serenode, for example, it's over, I think, 12 years, poor money for billions of, I think it's
yeah.
700 million at the end for the cost of 12 years, but it's unattainable. So that would be decision to the cost to break the company. And do you think that aspect is quite practically that based on your experience as well?
Yeah. So my dad and also my
Yeah,
colleagues at East Coast Biotech folks, right?
yeah,
Definitely all four are correct,
yeah,
but we see more those trends. I'm not sure it's 100% true,
yeah.
but Theranos and all those that, hidden manipulated financial report on unethical investment terms, those are kind of rare here,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
It's more really like there's no market fit or it's R&D is unattainable, those
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
Yeah.
That are the common of when you see the company fail, maybe 95%, 98%, they are either doesn't have product market fit or the product doesn't work, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I think very well said. I have to say that it is aligned with what I've seen as well.
Yeah,
Maybe the
yeah,
bubble
yeah.
are not quite aligned. Yeah. I have to say, completely agree with you. Thank you for that. Yeah. And if you don't mind, may I just go for the last one? If possible, I'm not sure that you don't do sales, isn't it? Because of as you start up, so market understanding, project delivery, and grant funding, you don't do monitoring. Okay, so all of which that's about, and I think it's already 45, 44 minutes as I asked you time for. So, in that case, have your business have any sale at all for your startup? I mean, is it be in the stage where you're considering the sale, or it haven't get there yet because it is the a structure of R&D for the startup at this present?
Yeah, we have to make sellable items soon, the SKUs.
All right, so you do
And
sell.
yeah, we haven't reached that yet, but we have to. Yeah, so our model is we make a consumer products. So yes, we're gonna reach sales stage, but
Yeah.
it's gonna time.
In that case, would you mind if I do quickly, like what you think of the KPI in sale? If you have that in mind, you can see here as well that there are different aspects in sale or people consider for the KPI. For example, profit and growth rate and customer satisfaction and retention of the
Mhm.
customer or cost per sale. It should be fairly straightforward. If you don't mind to fill in here.
Yeah, I would say revenue growth rate
Yeah.
number one, and the customer retention and satisfaction is almost same
Yeah.
to me. They satisfy, they
They
retain.
retain. Yeah.
Even
So
though sometimes product pricing is not in their range,
Yeah.
they prioritize, change their priority to buy certain products,
Yeah.
right? They are so happy about it. So
So
I would say customer retention number 2, satisfaction number 3, but truly 1 to 3 are the same thing, like
yeah,
revenue
understand.
growth, retention, and then I think will cost per sale 4, and then profit is usually you reach the break point
Yeah.
later on. I wouldn't worry about it that much.
Yeah. So you want to put it in 5 in here.
Yeah, and then cost per sale is also quite important.
Yes. Yes. That's very well analyzed here. And I'm wondering that in my research, we consider the KPI or the monitor and control of the process in wider aspect, if you like. We're not thinking of efficacy, efficiency, effectiveness, elegance, and ethic. So to give
Mm,
you a perspective here, you're talking about net profit when the time you start up making profit, and you will consider like efficacy. Does it make profit? How much net profit it is? But when you're thinking about efficiency is like net profit per employee because it efficiency is talking about per resource that you have, how efficient you use your resource, and
mm, mm, mm.
effectiveness is you're looking for like a long term, like the growth rate as you several times mentioned. And when you're talking about elegant, it's like um, at some point your product is on the market and you just try the way and then the customer come back to you without your sales guy talking and walking to talk to the customer. And most
Yeah.
importantly, is ethical that ensure that your sale, your figure, is legitimate profit because you can see that it's not often, but it happened that sometimes the sale figure or the revenue figure are actually not legitimate and they are breaking the ethical issue. And you think that all of these aspects is important to running the perspective of KPI or the performance management?
Growth rate. Yes, one thing though, that I'm a little curious. Well, the organic growth is important, but you don't always rely on organic growth. You have to also, I mean, my thought is if there's organic growth is sometimes, I mean, it's elegance. You phrase it really well.
Yeah,
There's something that non-organic growth that you really, you know, um, push it in a non-organic way
yeah,
means paid, right? So
yeah,
you really want to push the marketing side and consumer awareness and acquisition side,
yes,
different channels with the marketing campaign. So I think ultimately you want to really, go for the, revenue growth and that in turn you get high profit that it's really nice to have, but I think just you frame it organic growth seems to be just the one aspect. We cannot just rely on organic growth.
yes,
That's all.
yes, understand. That's very precise. So, but you think that consideration and management in tech, you always consider in different short and long term aspect of the company perspective in terms of management, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And if you pick up just the last question here, like a challenge in sale, for example, you probably want to sell in a couple of, I'm not sure, weeks, months, and what's the biggest challenge in sale that come across in your mind?
Yeah, how you penetrate a market, right?
Yeah,
When you don't have any brand awareness, any consumer fan base.
yeah,
If you're an existing company and then you have some consumer base or user base, whatever, and it's easy to launch new product
yeah,
because they already know you at least,
yeah,
right? So that's the go to market
yeah,
as a new company, new technology, new product, whatever. So how you reach that is the biggest challenge. So
yeah,
I would say how to kind of, reach out to people
yeah,
and obviously, have a brand awareness and then later on, like, the consumer conversion. That is the biggest challenge as a
Yeah.
new.
And do you think that the need to stand out from your competitor, it is a challenge in sales as well?
Uh, yeah, I think that's the second story, right?
Yeah.
That if even if you have a great product that works really well,
Yeah.
imagine, right? If no one knows about you,
Yes.
no one cares, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And
It's yeah,
that very very clear. As you see that you see one thing that I said in here, it's not the best product that win, but the best known one that win. It seems to be
yes,
true always, isn't it? That
yeah,
your point is the challenge of sale. It's also related to marketing as well, isn't it? How to set out the brand awareness and how to get people know your product that you are out there.
yes,
It's a challenge of how to sell. Um,
yeah,
in addition to, of course, the product quality itself. Okay,
yes.
so I'm really thankful so much. So
No,
I appreciate so much. And I think last time we met at Harvard, you still work for another company, right? And now you mentioned to me last time that you want to do startup, and I believe that
yeah.
after 2019 you set up your own startup, right?
So I did it 2020. So last year I incorporated the company.
Yeah,
So it's been about a year, I
yeah,
think. But because of pandemic that we never expected, it's been quite slow, to be honest.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
a company in a very different setting,
yeah,
very different from what I've known how to, work in a startup, all those, because everything was remote, even fundraising is remote. It was quite a challenge, to be honest. But hopefully we can pick up, speed soon. But yeah, I do remember you, and it was a good time.
yeah. It's fantastic time. I'm glad that we have done it before the pandemic. Otherwise, we wouldn't have that chance to
I
meet up
know.
together.
Yeah, it's all like online classes.
Yeah,
How boring. You know what I mean?
it's a lovely time. I think it's the best time for my education ever. I feel so excited to be around with such a unique and talented people. Everybody just so outstanding, and we feel like thrilled to be around a bunch of innovative and talented people from all over the world. I'm not sure do you feel the same.
Yeah. I think it was really good experience, and I don't know much about business side. I'm a scientist, and then still I'm learning and struggling a lot. But I think that whole class was a good sort of education opportunity and
Yeah,
exposed
yeah, yeah,
me to get a flavor of what the business is like a little bit, and then all the jargons and terms that I didn't know much, but I get a little familiar with those. So I actually loved it. I was really, really enjoying every moment of it. How's your company going? I know you have a startup company, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, with the pandemic, I have to say the same as the rest of the world. Our customer is in automotive, so we are in technology of engineering with the manufacturing process and things like that, and we have hit quite very hard. In fact,
No.
the manufacturer have been closed for months and months, and the demand, in particular of automation, have been declined, and it's very tough time for all of us really. But because of what we are doing is innovation, so I didn't have the break to like stay at home and work. I'm still come to office and do some development and working with a small team. So it's very tough, but I'm hoping that everything gonna pass behind us soon. Um, I think in the US it hit very hard. It's similar to the UK, isn't it? That our country, like
I know.
we are well developed, but we didn't do well when we started, do we?
Yeah, but I admire your courage, and since I started this new thing, I have a newly found respect for all founders and CEOs
Yeah,
for small. I didn't know that,
how
what
hard
I
it
was.
is until you done it, right?
No. I'm still struggling a lot, learning, and I just, a lot of challenges, as you already might
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, I totally understand. I think all the startup understand the startup. They know where they were and they know how hard it is. And there are time and time that we feel so frustrated and so, difficult. And but that the cycle of startup, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
and because of you have so high expertise on R&D and knowledge, do you have to get co-founder who look after the business side or commercial and things like that, or you just run solo? Just run the
No,
startup.
I have a co-founders. So one is the like you said, helping me with the business side and
Yeah,
fundraising and financials and operations and governance a little bit,
yeah,
because he's done many times startups.
yeah,
He's a kind of seasoned CEO
yeah,
for startup. So he's co-founder, and then I also have a co-founders. I made them co-founder, obviously, for more, technology side, R&D side, because they bring also, the validation, I would say, with their reputation,
yeah,
because very accomplished entrepreneurs slash researchers,
yeah,
right? Yeah, they're from Harvard Med. So, and then also they also use their technologies for startups, and they've been very successful. Yeah, so that's my co-founders, and but they're not operational, so I'm the only operational
all
person.
right.
They're more advisors, I would say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but can help still, because I this is my first time startup experience.
yeah,
Before, I work in a startup company as an employee. It's
yeah,
different from you do it your thing, right?
yes.
So I actually suffers a lot. I suffer so much, and sometimes I'm like, why did I even start this, right?
I can understand you precisely. Everyone been to that step. So young, I couldn't understand more. If you need any, like somebody to talk to, give me a call anytime.
Oh, thank you. You
I
did the same. Yeah, you did the same.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can be a help, but anything that you need help, I'll be happy to
Oh,
help.
thank you
I
so
feel like
much.
my expertise with all the startup people, startup CEOs and founders, we should, look out for each other. And we all busy, but I always believe that we can always make time for your friends and someone that you can
Oh,
care.
that's very, very sweet.
So you let me know. We can
Yeah,
stay in
thank
touch.
you so much, and the same to you.
Thank
And I
you.
would like to thank you very, very much again for all of your time. It's very insightful information to have, a very high knowledgeable PhD grad from the other side of the world. So grateful for your expertise and knowledge. And I would like to say thank you so much for your time here. It's very valuable to my thesis
Oh,
paper.
you're very welcome. One last thing, I
Yeah,
love your slide that all the graphics you put in.
yeah.
It all makes sense. Um, if Can you share with me, or you
Sure,
cannot? It's
I have no problem, because
oh,
I
really?
I
I would
spend
love
I
to.
spend months to look around. Um, just that I can share with you and it's no problem. Maybe and of course that you do is totally different. Just that please don't pass it on to somebody else that because I
Oh
haven't
no.
published my paper yet. But anything that you want to use the character and I think it's great for presentation because of all of these I spend like many a lot of time to just see and understand, and I think as yourself we feel that this thing template when it come handy in hand, of course that it will help you to just make something presentation fairly straightforwardly. I'm more than happy, just that ensure it is I haven't yet submit to anybody, so it's still at the state of no publication, but
Oh
if
yeah.
you want to use for
Okay.
anything,
Understand.
feel free to pick, and some of them I draw it myself, some of them I pick up from the free icon and things. So please feel free to use them. And the template, I totally don't mind. And if you need any help for how I create this and that, just like drop me an email. I'm more than happy to help that. I will send you the PowerPoint, no problem.
Thank you so much, Fun. I think that this is so I can see how much effort and time went in with all the graphics. I was blown away how detailed it is too. It's so powerful, but I promise you I'll never circulate this.
Yeah, thank you so
And
much. No worry at all.
I want to use it as a reference. I think it's really great.
Yeah, thank you so much. No worry. I will send you right away after our meeting. So I wish you have a great time and enjoy your summer. And please keep in touch. And hopefully we hit each other again in the US. And hopefully I have a chance to get there.
Yeah, if you ever come to Boston, please feel free
Yeah,
to,
totally, totally.
we can meet up, to catch up and share ideas and thoughts and all
Yeah,
those. Okay?
definitely. I will die for that. Thank you so much. So Young, have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.